He's usually just does his own thing now. He's so used to it,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm used to it.
Mm-hmm.
But
How old?
he's 10 and a half.
Okay. Yes.
I said, on this one, you just
Yes.
Zip it.
yeah. So he's sitting here with his goldfish and his little, phone.
See, snacks and little technology will do
Yeah.
it. My daughter is well, she'll almost 6. I'm trying to shift into that 6 because her birthday is right around the corner. But
Yeah.
she's 6, so I'm like peanut M&Ms in a bowl, headphones on, tablet going. Think we're gonna make it.
That's a good age. That's a good age where you can start to do that. Like when there's too little, they still need you. Even if you have a movie, they still want your time.
Yeah, and that's still the case here. But she's adjusting to understanding like, okay, this is mommy's work time. So I realize when I'm on technology time, she gets technology time. That works absolute best.
Karen, how about you? How are your girls?
They're good. Right now we have an old neighbor who's visiting on her way back from picking up a rescue animal from the airport. So they're all hanging out back right now.
Nice.
With the animal,
It was a 3-week-old, maybe conure. I can't really tell because it doesn't have feathers yet, but yeah.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
Always a do around here.
Yeah.
So, Lawrence, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah. So thank you both, TaJuana and Kelly, for joining this craziness that we call C3. And this conversation and this topic, early on, me and Karen, we were like, okay, what does collaboration look like? And what does it look like when you do it well? And it included other people, not doing it in a vacuum, not doing it in a bubble, but pulling in people who are passionate about topics, passionate about their areas, and not only passion, but the passion fuels what they feel like is purposeful in their lives. And so this topic around today, and just really how are people leaning in to turnover, to retention. I know I've been doing work with coaching clients, with business owners who, again, they weren't doing it well. And so they were losing people left and right, even in the midst of a pandemic, they were losing people. But how they were losing people was the real conversation, because they weren't being human. And so how do you do that in the midst of this? And I'm so excited to have you both here. So I could be a student. I got my notepad ready, and let you all make magic. So Karen, thank you so much for finding these two rock stars.
Oh yeah, well, Kelly and I go way back, so I'm going to start there. Kelly and I work together. Worked together at a recruiting and consulting firm called Devon Consulting, and she was just always invested in other people's success, including mine. So I'm always forever grateful that we got to meet, that I got to work with her, that she helped me become the professional that I am today, really. And she has a company called Panna Knows, and it is an HR and recruiting consulting company. And she has a lot of experience around the things that companies can do to make sure that they're attracting their top talent, but also retaining their top talent. So I'm really excited for her to share her expertise. And TaJuana and I met through Facebook, through a post that I put out looking for some experts to come join us in the C3 community. And we had a really great call, and she has a really impressive corporate background where she helps companies, not just, assess the change that they want, but create a plan for it. So we have somebody who's really, going to be great at the conceptualization of what changes need to happen, and somebody who's going to be really great around, here's how you do that. So I'm really excited. Thank you both so much for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Hope I did your backgrounds justice.
Thanks, Karen.
So tell us, ladies, which I didn't want to go first, but why is recruiting and why is just the strategy of HR so important for an organization and its people?
TaJuana, do you work on, so Karen was saying the corporate side, are you in HR? Are you in recruiting specifically? What's your role?
Actually, I would say I'd be a subset to HR and recruiting. As a project consultant, so working with people who are already internal, right? But helping them understand the value of their role when these new projects and special initiatives come into play. A lot of times employees feel disempowered, if you will. They feel like they're voluntold. And so it's really helping them see the value of who they are and what they bring to the table, why they were selected to contribute to that initiative based on their position, their expertise, their experience, and all of those things. So really assisting HR in that capacity, because companies like to try and separate as Lauren said, when they're not doing it well, they like to separate their human capital from their financial capital. And the truth is, you can't do it if you're going to do it well, right? And so when you think about those things as not necessarily synonymous, but when you think about them as being collaborative, we've used that term earlier on, collaborative, you really realize how much of a benefit they are and how well they support one another. So I like to see myself as a liaison, if you will, or a concierge to HR, because when the people understand their worth and value, and the leadership supports that, and don't just say it, but they actually support it through action and are willing to move the barriers to give the employees the empowerment that they need, the autonomy to do the work that they've assigned them to do, then we have less HR issues, right? And more HR, the celebration of HR and supporting in that way. So
so this is a really hot topic always, but even more so now that people are remote, right? It's even more, and it changes the whole landscape. So the importance is still the same, but how you do it in the landscape in which you do it is different.
Absolutely.
So that's phenomenal. So I do the recruiting side, which is not really sides, but it's the beginning, right? It's the beginning kind of stage. And then it gets pushed into where you're saying like, okay, employers, you've got to figure out how to keep them. So my job is to make sure I try to find the best possible talent that is going to match the position, the culture, the people, the environment, the formats that they work, the business, all of that, so that you can help by making sure that your clients, the corporate side or whatever it may be, startups, will engage and keep those folks. And so I just had a conversation about this morning, 2 conversations actually. One was saying, how do you keep people engaged, like just in a general, and I said, well, you have to understand who they are and what they want. That's right. So there's a term that might not be so popular, but a term that I've trademarked called the unculture. And it's really about, there's not one culture in your company. It's like, come drink my Kool-Aid. Right? I don't believe in that. It's like TaJuana has her own needs. Lawrence has his own needs. Karen has her own needs. And you need to figure out what makes that person tick.
That's right.
It sounds overwhelming, so it's probably not too popular. Like, we have 10,000 employees. Okay. Well, we've got groups of people that certain things make them tick.
That's right.
But then each individual, you have to treat them like individuals, because you're going to lose them if you don't. And that's where there's a miss in corporate America. Everyone has culture. It's like, this is what we do as a company. And I just don't, I'm not on that train. So should I hide now? Am I going to get tomatoes? But here's the other thing I'll say is, we have to work together. The recruiting piece, and the HR and hiring manager piece, we have to work together. And so when I have a client and they say, we need you to hire this and we want you to guarantee that you're going to replace them in 90 days if they fail, I say, that's fine. But tell me about your turnover. Tell me about your onboarding. Tell me about how you manage people. What's your performance system like?
Yes.
How often do you meet with your people? Yes. How do you measure their success? Because they always think it's the recruiter's fault.
Right.
Right? It's like, well, it's not. This is a partnership. We're going to work with you.
That's right.
And so let's make sure we can find the best talent.
And find the best talent, but also supporting, like, do you really want the best talent, and why is it taking you so long to secure them? Right? Because companies want the best talent, but if it's going to take you 90 or more days to bring that talent on board, guess what? That talent is going to find another place to go, right? It's going to accept another opportunity, because they're not going to sit around and wait for you to get your act together. Because if your recruitment process is any indication of how you operate, once I'm within, I don't think I want to buy into that either, right? When we talk about the culture, right, a corporate culture. So that collaborative initiative between management, the hiring manager, the team, the division, department officer, whomever it is that is needing that talent, they must ensure that they're willing to support it and get that talent on board as quickly as possible if it's what they really want.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're going to continue to lose it, and they're going to continue to find turnover because people are going to be taking on new opportunities because, well, I accepted this for the moment, but now something else better has come, right? And they've lost, the hiring employer has lost again. So it's definitely a partnership that must be had and must be fully supported. Like, don't just say you want to hire good people, take the action to make sure they get in.
That's a great point. Like, too many people say we're ready to hire.
Mm-hmm.
We have all these positions and we're ready to hire. And I always say, so when you say you're ready to hire, you've got the training program,
right?
You have the functionality set up. You have systems ready for them. You
have the budget.
Yeah, right. You even have the budget.
Right?
So it makes them start thinking about making sure they have everything set up to set this person. Their job is to set them up to succeed.
Yes.
So, and that's my job too, is to help the hiring manager, like make sure they understand, like, is this really what you want? Are you really ready?
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise you lose people quickly.
Absolutely.
100%. And I love that both of you have hit on some things that me and Karen have often talked about as it pertains to accountability and ownership for the organization, right? And Kelly, what you pointed to was, is that hiring manager signing up for doing their job as it pertains to development from the beginning? And I love Ken Blanchard and the situational leadership model. And when you talk about the development models, when you say somebody comes in and they have the motivation, they're excited to be there, but they don't know what they don't know. And so it's like, hey, you hired me based on my resume, but how do you do it here?
Yes.
Like, if I have to not only show up day one, 100% expert, and teach myself about culture here, like, I'm already at a deficit. I'm already starting behind the starting line. And it's oftentimes organizations after that 90-day probation, like, as an HR leader, I started doing stay interviews, like at the 30, 60, and 90 day to see how they were being climatized, for lack of a better term, and integrated into the current culture of the organization. And oftentimes what I was finding is they weren't. It was like, put baby in the corner and tell baby not to cry. And it was like, literally, it was like, oh, they're ready for night shift. Well, time out. They don't even know where the bathroom is.
That's right.
Like you want them to be an operator on night shift, and they don't know. Like, I just saw him walk in the ladies' room. Like, why? That's a male employee. Like, he doesn't know which locker room is his. So, like, we haven't even done that part. So we're asking them to do a job. And so I thank both of y'all for saying that, because as an organization culture guy, I beat leaders like, hey, a little grace for the new guy and gal, like, grace, please. Like, they just got here. And so what systems are in place for you to set them up for success, so that, again, we can properly evaluate them if they're really a fit? And you hit it early on culture fit. I want to wring people's necks around culture fit. Like, which one, the posters on the wall or the subculture that you've allowed to exist?
That's right.
Which one are we asking about? Right? The good old boy network that was on Glassdoor, is that the one that we're talking about? Right. Or the one that you want people to promote on a YouTube video? Like, which one are we doing here, folks?
Yes. Yeah. You spoke to something so well, because it reminds me of for a former organization that I worked with. It came to an actualization where there was a workshop called Empowering the Employee. And what that was all about was, you have this big organization, right? Over 9,500 employees statewide. You can get easily hired on one of three major divisions, but not know that you could be eligible for a support service that's offered in another area within your own employer, right? And so, in order for the employee to feel supported, right? Because it's human services. So in life, we all have crises. You might have an aging parent. You might have a niece or nephew that's about to enter the foster care system. You might have, job loss, pandemic, right? things that are happening, and you're charged with helping make self-sufficiency and making sure your fellow citizens have everything that they need to survive, but yet you're sinking, you're flailing because you don't even know that you have access to the same rights, services, and privileges that your fellow neighbors and residents have. And so one of the things that organizations can do is empower your employees by making them aware of what's beyond their desk, making them aware about that. If we want to talk about organizational culture, what it is that the organizational does and how what it is that they may touch fits into the bigger dynamic of the job's purpose, right? The company's purpose and service. And so even doing that will get you a different level of commitment from your teams and from the talent, right? From that talent acquisition that you're hoping and putting so much into. Yet, what are you putting back into them? Because obviously you're hiring them for them to put into you. So what are you putting back into them as well? And by giving them some of that basic information and strengthening them to realize, hey, my company will take care of me, so I'm definitely going to take care of them, will take things to another level all by itself.
TaJuana, I'm thinking about wellness programs and statistics around their efficacy and enrollment and adoption. And I'm thinking about, when you're a new employee and you get all of that information all at once, you're not going to retain, remember, apply all of that all at once. So it must look like, repeated communications about what's available for them. And I know that there are some companies who have been able to effectively gain widespread adoption of their wellness programs. So what does that communication plan look like?
Something like that could look like, for example, orientation video, right? So it may be an internal facing video that you have on your intranet versus the internet. You can do that at every orientation. And then HR can have their own marketing campaign where once a month they're reminding employees, hi, there's an employee, assistance program available to you with these benefits. That's in addition to your normal health benefits or programs or wellness. There's many ways that it can be done. And like you said, encouraging management to remind their teams at their different touch points. Or if you see an employee that is normally maybe just high performing and suddenly they're kind of latent, they're kind of zoned out on things, getting with them one-on-one, connecting with them, or getting with whoever their peer is and saying, hey, is there a need, right? But that comes back to having the freedom and boundaries and the authenticity that needs to exist in leadership, not painting this perfect picture that we have to be 100% perfect and get everything right all the time. We want wellness. We want accuracy, yet we are not machines. And we require preventative maintenance as well, right? So a plan like that, it looks like you said, repeated education. We're continuously informing and making awareness, but not giving so much notification that we go numb to them, right? But you can have a campaign that reminds that you have these benefits that are available and accessible to you for XYZ needs. And even if it's a monthly theme per se, it might not be all of it flooding in all the time. They can go into that intranet and access it by category, but you might have a month on this level of wellness and a month on that happening based on what's going on in the world around us to keep things relevant. That's typically what are going to trigger people to draw focus into that particular need, but of course have all of it available somewhere so that people can access it as their life things are happening. So those are just three simple ways actually that a company can empower their employees through information.
And then Kelly, you had a really great list of things that you were asking your clients before they engage you to come in and help them recruit top talent. You mentioned onboarding training programs, functionality, do you have an actual checklist that you go through with clients? And then if they're deficient in areas, what do you do then?
I do. So I have kind of a checklist that's in my system. It's like my onboarding of a client. And then we do the same thing of onboarding of the department, if it's a new department. And then, down to the position. But these are things that also come as, I'm not a robot. I always say that. So even when you're screening candidates, we have a list of questions, but don't be a robot, have a conversation. And then natural things come from those questions. But there are some things that are really, really important, like making sure, like TaJuana said, making sure they have the budget to hire, but making sure they know how to bring in bring in people. And so are you guys familiar with a company called Energage? You probably are, Karen. Do you know Energage?
Yeah.
So they do like survey. It's really cool stuff. They do surveys. It's all around employee engagement. And they're working on something now that's it's all around predictive turnover. I just talked to the CFO this morning. I love like I've been friends with the CFO and the CHRO for a
I
long
need
time,
that
but
information.
this is like,
I need that.
I was like, what? So there's some presentation coming up, Lawrence, and some FP&A group asked him, financial planning analysis group that's doing some work around this, asked the CFO, my friend Mitch, to come and interview someone on predictive turnover. I was like, please send me that. It's like, I guess it's a couple days of a conference, but there's like this one like that. So what they're doing is they're trying to measure engagement in departments and how it's going up and down to evaluate like, okay, this person's engagement is starting to go down. So there's an issue here. So they're going to start to know where things are turning over and then how to be proactive and fix it. Phenomenal.
That sounds exactly like something I would want our C3 community to know about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's like, whew, you know, so yeah.
That is great. That is great stuff right there. And a company that's actually studying their turnover, it can be predictive, especially companies that hire in waves, right?
Yeah.
If you're hiring for a particular role in waves and you have, you know, maybe an extensive 12-week training period, and then after that, you put them right into the field. And then for 6 weeks, they're kind of building the plane as they fly, right? They're just, they're just trying to survive. You can predict that some aren't going to make it through that 12-week training because they're going to find another opportunity by the time they get working. You can predict that when people start working, they're going to say, you know what, I didn't sign up for this, right? I thought I was going to have more help. I thought I was going to have more education. I thought I was going to have more instruction or hands-on or shadowing or get more experience before I was then held to all of these metrics to measure performance at a standard in which I'm not even performing yet. So that you can predict that people are going to fall off, shy away, or if they're at that internal mark, or if there is no mark. I know some companies don't have a 90-day wait, right? Once you're in, you can go ahead and start applying for other positions. So some people already go in the door knowing, I just want to get in and I'm going to work whatever I have to work, right? Just to get to another area. So if you're hiring in waves, that is another area where you can absolutely determine where your trouble areas are going to be and how you can revamp your processes to, you know, have ambassadors or have support systems to help really wean those people in, as Lawrence said earlier on our conversation, so that they will be set up for success and the company will as well, because we all know it costs so much more to continue hiring a person than to keep them on, right? Especially if it's somewhere that they want to be. So
I ask that all the time in a intake, like to your point, Karen, about, you know, do I have kind of a checklist? I always say, tell me what your turnover is like.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And so it could be scary, right? Because it sounds logical to know what your turnover is, to know how much it costs you. I want some of you to tell me why some leaders avoid it.
Avoid what? Measuring
the conversation,
it?
Yeah, measuring it.
Well, so TaJuana probably has a different experience. With me, they give me numbers. Now, sometimes I don't know where they're pulling the numbers from. They're like, oh, it's like 15% or 12%, or, you know, when they start getting up higher, you know, they're telling the truth. Like healthcare traditionally is 30-35% turnover, which is like crazy, but that's normal for them. But it's not healthy for other corporate. But so, TaJuana, you probably talk about this more with people in that, you know, I'm talking way in the beginning. So you're talking like once they're hired.
Well, it's a combination because a part of it is getting it right from the start so that you don't continue to have it once they're hired, right? Because that's where it's more costly. You have invested this money and you've started their benefits enrollment and whatnot, and now it's a loss and we have to pour it back into someone else again, right? So it started obviously with looking at what do we have currently happening, historically, if it's not a new occurrence, right? Historically, what has been happening, and how can we now resolve this so that we don't have this continue to happen in the future? So it definitely started from within, but it's all about reverse engineering, right? This is where we are. We have massive turnover in this area for XYZ reason that we think. Let's really peel back the layers and figure out why and the what that's happening. And if we were to make changes, make them from the beginning. So that way, even going down to the recruitment side, right? How are we even advertising for this position so that when people come in, they come in understanding the benefits and challenges that they're getting into versus feeling tricked, right? How many times have people gone into opportunities because they have been sold this dynamic experience, and then the person gets in and they're like, I jumped out the pot into the kettle, right? Like, what is this? I want my old job back, right? So we want to make sure that we're really thinking about the process, like you said, from the start, and if you have to start with where you are because you're so far in, start somewhere and don't just guess. Do look at your numbers so you can make informed decisions. Data-driven decisions are going to get you to the root cause versus putting a Band-Aid on a problem that will absolutely turn into something really nasty sooner than later, and jobs will be at stake for more so than turnover. They won't be willful.
That's really, really important. The communication piece. So the analysis, the evaluation, putting together a process, or sharing that, communicating all the way to recruiting.
Yes.
And I keep bringing it back, but that's where I am.
Yes.
That's really key. So when I spend time on the phone with the hiring manager and I'm trying to figure out what they need, and I ask a lot of questions, sometimes I can feel them on the other side like this. Like, or some will say, well, I don't have much more time. Like, is there something, can we like cut to the chase? Or is like, there's I tell them, like, I'm going to do an intake call with you on a job and it's going to be an hour and a half. They're like,
yes.
Well, no, because I really want to understand.
Yeah.
And then you have the ones that say, thank you so much for taking this time and asking all these questions, because you're going to be able to find me more qualified people up front. But when they don't spend the time, that's when turnover can happen too. Right? Because recruiters just sometimes shoot stuff and just hope something sticks. And the more that you can communicate to them what works, the better they can do for you.
Yep, absolutely. Effective communication in that intake is everything. Yes, Karen.
I'm just thinking about all the conversations that I observe online for what's happening for people right now on both sides. The leaders who are concerned, especially weeks ago when nobody knew which way was up. Everybody was trying to figure things out in complete chaos. We still don't know what's happening, but I think by now, by this far in, hopefully most organizations are figuring out the plan A, the plan B, the plan C, for reopening, for re-engaging everybody. But the keeping up levels performance, while trying to really grieving. We were all grieving the normal life that we had before this all happened, processing all these emotions, including leaders, right? And then for the individuals, especially now that school is starting, like how there's people who it's starting or it's already started and they still don't know how it's going to work because they're still expected to fulfill these duties, perform up to this particular level, but also be their kids' virtual learning coach. I've seen some really great threads of human resources professionals and leaders who are like, tell me what I got to do to make things easier for my people, and a lot of great ideas and companies that are doing amazing things like stipends for home offices, and just being human and flexible about what time things need to come in and get done, as well as covering home internet connections and all that other stuff that that comes along with it. There's also so many people with one foot out the door, like if this doesn't work, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm either going to get fired or I got to find another employer who's going to be willing to work with me, and that's not going to be easy, in their mind. And also, Kelly, from the recruiting side, during a time like this when the candidate pool is wider, it does not make anything easier. in terms of finding talent at all. So can we talk about the 1 foot out the door people? You know, what can the leaders do right now to make sure that the 1 foot out the door people are as retained and engaged as possible? And then let's also talk about the, you know, recruiting in the time of COVID, where you really have to identify the people who are going to be 1 foot out the door as soon as they get in, because you know, because they had to take this job, but it's not a long-term solution for them. It's just what they had to do right now.
Well, who do you want to? I can jump in. So,
Kelly, I don't know why, but your voice is harder to hear now than it was before.
Oh.
I don't know. Go ahead though. I can hear you. It's not as loud. I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see.
That's good.
I don't know if that's helpful. So
that is helpful.
I would say for the people that are 1 foot out the door, if you can see that they're 1 foot out the door, I think as a manager, you should talk to them, right? Try to see what's changed. I think it's really hard when they're at home.
Yeah.
And I think managers have to make huge efforts to constantly talk to them, and talk to them like this on a video, right? Because chatting on Slack is great, and keeping in touch with text and phone calls is terrific, but you really need to engage the team and talk to them as much as you can, especially one-on-one, so that you're trying to understand what their pains are, what's happening at home. Do you need my support? I personally think what I do with my team and my companies, I have 11 people. They're it's a lot smaller than most companies, but it's almost like a department, right? So what I allow them to do, because I am able to, for what I do, manufacturing, they can't do this, but I allow them to have a lot of autonomy. So when someone says, you know, I have my daughter here, I have my son here, great. Take a few hours. You need a few hours, take a few hours. Just do whatever you need to do. Focus on your, you know, your child. Focus on whatever you need to do. So I think allowing some grace, like, you know, like understanding that everyone has situations, even if you don't. People are in different situations, but we can't always see them, especially now that it's remote. You can't see their reactions and how they're feeling, and sometimes they're not going to voice it. But I think to give them some grace and just say, like, listen, I have a kid too, or like my sister has a kid, or, you know, I see my neighbors struggling and I understand. So whatever you need to do, just I tell my team, just be productive on the time that you work. You do whatever you want. Because I personally, my philosophy is, Karen's probably heard me say this or seen me say it on LinkedIn. My personal philosophy is I never worry about my clients. If any of my clients see this, just I do worry about you, but I don't have to worry about my clients because I worry about my team. Right? So I don't really worry because I treat them well. So if you treat them well and you take care of them and you allow them to have autonomy, they will take care of your clients. So I think if they have 1 foot out the door, that's a management issue. You need to just be closer to them, take care of them if you can. Not all, and a lot of managers are also producers. So it's hard, but they have to, and they're also parents.
Yep.
So it's difficult, but they have to do the best that they can and really try to make an effort and just understand the person. I don't know if anyone has anything to add on that.
Cool.
Yes, you definitely hit the nail on the head about being concerned about your people, right? The not sharing, if there is something going on, people typically don't share because they don't feel like it's okay to share. And you don't share with somebody that you don't trust. So if an employee feels like they're going to be targeted for having this issue, or they feel like the work, their management or leadership of some kind, and those words aren't synonymous for me, but right, if their manager feels, they feel like their manager is going to have a problem if they express this because their work performance is going to go down. The truth of the matter is, and like Kelly said, where autonomy can be had, is a huge benefit. When you allow people to take care of, these are competing priorities, right? We're no longer compartmentalized in a way that we can say, oh, work right now is the most important thing because I'm at work and this is what I should be focusing on. Work is calling. As you can see, I keep turning my head to the right, right? Because my 5-year-old is also trying to speak to me. There are different things happening. We're hybrid professionals at this time, more so than we have ever been. Before, we could take off a hat and put another hat on as we checked in and checked out of certain rooms, certain places, certain experiences. Now we're wearing those hats all at the same time, and everybody's hat might be something different. It might be a pet, right, that still needs care. It might be a parent. It might be a child. It might be a cousin. It might be someone who lost a job and you brought the family in. Whatever the case may be, if the job allows for some level of autonomy, right? Again, I think I said earlier before, freedom and boundaries. You know what the expectations are. You know what's required of you. You know what the commitment is. You know what you've committed to. You know whatever deadlines you've expressed. As a manager, giving that employee the opportunity to do that within whatever those boundaries are, but not control. You've got to be logged in by this or that time. If there's not something that requires that, let them have that a little bit of time, right, to navigate all the other things that are also important while we're in this particular season. Because when we don't take care of our people, like Kelly said, she didn't have to worry about her clients because she worries about our team. Well, if we don't worry about our teams, we're going to be worried about a whole lot more things than getting a particular task completed by a certain day or a certain time. It's gonna have a domino effect on everything. So where we can allow our team members, our staff, our employees to do the work and set hours that will still allow them to complete with quality, you'll get way more out of them than by trying to hold them to a traditional performance schedule that our life doesn't recognize anymore, because that's not the only thing that we're committed to in the present. So those collaborative workspaces, like Kelly said, do have face-to-face conversations, because a person can easily, just shoot something in the Slack, but be dying on the inside because of something that's happening, or because their person has now been infected, or whatever the case may be. So really, really making sure that you are with your people through this. We're going through the storm in very different ways, but we are going through the storm collectively, and making sure that we're actually true to that.
Tawana, I think what you just said about leaders seeing some talent solutions and not seeing the long-term impact of their talent decisions, right? But seeing it like short term, we need to meet these metrics, or the company suffers and, maybe layoffs are necessary. But in the long term, if you're not checking in with those employees who have one foot out the door, if they're going through something nothing about, we had our call 2 weeks ago about psychological safety, because it kept coming up as something that's really critical for companies to have if they're going to find out what's actually happening with their employees and do anything about it. And what you were saying, listening, checking in, great, but compassion I consider to be empathy in action. So you have to do something with that. You have to figure out, well, now that I know what's going on with my employee, I've experienced challenges with this myself, especially last semester. I'm teaching my students how to navigate a job market. And when they came into my classroom, it was the best job market they ever had. Like there was opportunities abounded. They were kind of like, why do I need this? It's required, so I'm going to do it. And then suddenly, the life that they had planned on having seems completely impossible. They're grieving, they're at home, they had to move, they were already stressed out about the life ahead and the decisions that are now on them to make. And now everything's completely unknown. Like there's no certainty, not even that they'll live or die, not that there's ever that, but you don't become a 21-year-old senior in college assuming that, like you're going to have to make life death decisions coming right out of it. And knowing where to find the balance of giving them grace because they're going through all of this, but making sure that they get what they need, because now they need it more than ever, and not like scare them. You not be like, you need this now, like you're grieving, let me throw some more shock in, but to be able to be like, okay, I understand, like you're shut down, let's let's get you to the finish line though, and give you at least some basics that will help you move forward. Yeah, tricky things, but the long-term impacts I was going to go back to of the talent decisions, how if you're not addressing that, if you're failing to address that, like Lauren's saying, why are leaders not addressing their turnover? Then the long-term impacts are, it's going to be harder for somebody like Kelly to find your company top talent, you know, and then you're not going to be able to compete as much, and you know, all the chain reaction of things that happen past that. In addition to the productivity that's going to be gone anyway, because you're going to have a vacant position, you know. How can we inspire leaders to think more long-term about the talent decisions that they make, especially right now?
What is your ultimate goal, right? Going back to your corporate synergy, your corporate alignment, your mission, vision, purpose. Why are you here? Regardless of what's going on environmentally, that core principle probably hasn't changed. Now, you may have to change how you do it, right? But the reason why your business is delivering whatever it was that it was set up to deliver, that why likely hasn't changed. So keeping that in mind, and then figuring out, now, how do we continue to progress towards that? How do we phase into that if we strayed from it, right? Where was the breakdown, and how do we get into that? Really just going back to the basics. What is our company about? And if it's about sustainability, if it's about continuity, if it's about, you know, leveraging opportunity, if it's about ensuring that our employees have the best of the best so that our customers can receive, you know, the best benefit of it is, then what do we need? And then after we decide what do we need, own whatever actions are required to ensure that we need it, and phase it, right? We can't tackle the whole plan in one day, in 2 weeks, in 3 months. This might be a 1 to 4 year corporate strategy. Whatever it takes to get to that level of sustainability, to get to that level of, right? When we think about from the marketing side, you want people to see your company as, oh, it's good for now, but not for later. Right. No, you want to be here. You want to be here. You want to be around. You want to surpass whatever obstacles, because you want to be kept at top of mind. You want people to know that you are a reliable entity for whatever it is that you're servicing, whomever it is that you're servicing. So what do we need, and what things do we need to put in place, small steps at a time, to get there? And that absolutely involves your employees at every level, bottom up, get to the closest, those that are going to have the greatest impact. Have those stakeholder meetings with them as well, because they're going to be the ones that are actually going to implement it. When we're really considering change and transformation, it's our line employees that are the hardest hit, but often have the smallest voice when it comes to the changes and the impact that are going to be made. So getting with them and understanding, we know what we think happens organizationally, but how does this really delivered, right? Who, what divisions, what departments, what offices, what technology, what needs are out there in the market that we should consider, so that way when we're making a decision about change or going in a different direction or doing something in a different way, how it's going to circle back around and affect your day to day. But I think that's going back to the basics. It doesn't have to be complex. We do have to bring all of our stakeholders in, and we have to be patient and understand that it is a process, gradual change. Sustainable change takes place gradually, not overnight.
Kelly, it sounds like your onboarding process is also something that prepares your clients to think about the long term of their client.
Yeah.
Wow.
So my tagline is talent is the core of your value, right? So yes, you have a service, you have a product, that's, you know, the value, but how are you getting there? It's your talent. So you have to always focus on your people. And just because I have this idea of like how I want to run my company and what I think everyone should be happy with that I give them, they might not care. Like, I might say, hey, go have off tomorrow. And they're like, I don't want off. I would like to work again. Okay. Like, it doesn't matter what I think, it's what they want, what they need. So you've got to listen. You have to listen. That's why if it's a really big company, surveys are great. But just one-on-one, you know, being with your folks, my COO is going to come down for a couple days this week. I invited her down. She's going to, I got her hotel. We're going to hang out. Like that's because she is going to bring her daughter, and that's something that she is really excited about.
Right.
Someone else might say, I don't want to hang out with you, but thank you. Like I talked to you 9 to 5. That's great. But if you want to give me some money to go, I'll go do it. You have to listen. You have to listen. It's as easy as listening and then acting, because you can get all the information that you want. If you don't do anything with it, that's what TaJuana's saying. Like if you don't actually put it into motion, not helping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very simple. I think it's very, very simple.
It is.
Yeah. Sometimes that's the painful stuff. Is the simple stuff. But and me and Karen, particularly early on, as we began to talk about just the concept of conscious leadership and just how are we as leaders showing up for our people, like you said, once you ask, and then you ask again, and then you get them to know, like, and trust you again, and they actually start giving you the goods, what are you doing with it? And if it's not something, like you said, Kelly, that's meaningful to them, then they're like, all right, it's business as usual. And so I'm just going to give you the answer that I think you want. And so I'm going to hedge until I find this new job. And the scary part for organizations, they should be looking at what is their development strategy, their talent development strategies across the board. Because if you have employees who are willing to leave in the midst of a pandemic, you got a fundamental problem at all levels, at the core of you. Yeah. If they are willing to risk it all to leave you, holy smokes. Yeah. All right. So when we get back to anything remotely normal, it's going to be open up the floodgates.
Yes.
And so that's the thing. Like now, if you have data of people exiting during this, wow, check your business model. Because you're taking a hit.
It's exposed. Leadership is exposed right
100%.
100%.
Right. So you're either a leader or maybe just a manager, right? And I feel like they're two different things. But to be a really good manager, you should be a leader. Like I don't know how else you can do it, but they're exposed right now. And there are people, I've talked to people who said, I haven't even really heard from my manager. I haven't even blah, blah, blah. I haven't blah, blah, blah. So those people, they have their 1 foot, like Karen was saying, they put 1 foot out the door because they're getting nothing right now. And it's because they have managers, not leaders, right? Because I guarantee you leaders are on the phone, they're on video, how are you doing? What can I do for you? Do you need help? Do you need support at home? I know this is hard. They're listening, they're truly caring. It's not just, they're not just saying it and then not doing anything with it. It's like, what can I help you with? And then really helping them.
Yes. Kelly, you said something so important because as you were speaking, I'm like, but it's not the opposite. There's another extreme to the checking in, right? There's the micro managing.
Can't do
right?
it. Yeah.
So while we're encouraging, connect with your teams and have conversations and, get the face-to-face on the glass screen, we are not encouraging for you to micromanage your teams and pecking them every 45 minutes and having them ping in for bathroom breaks and having them, that's not what we're saying, people, right?
Very good. They're out the door.
Listen, because they're out there as well, right? Like you have the people that are saying, I haven't really heard from my boss. And then you have those that are like having anxiety because their phone is pinging because their boss is so on this, got to get the work done. Where are you? Like they're, I can't even say elementary students. They even have the autonomy to just kind of go and do what they need, right?
Yeah.
But
and it's funny hearing that TaJuana, like hearing that description. Like I had, some leaders, customer support employees. Like as I said, they can't be off the phones. They can't be off the phones. I'm like, holy smokes! Like chill out. Like it's 7 a.m. Like chill. Like it's okay. It is. Oh, yeah.
They have things going on. Yeah.
And again, like y'all have described already, everything's on the noodle now. I can't compartmentalize my hats anymore. I used to be able to reserve that 8 hours in the car, on the job, in the building, but now I no longer, I don't have an office. I have a fold out table that is the office, and they got kids and snacks and everything running around me at the same time. And then, oh, by the way, the family that was not a multi-device family. And so now the dynamics, and Karen, you said it before, when it comes to equity, organizations, what were you prepared to do as it pertains to devices for your employees? That now their work computer at night used to be homework computer, but now you've got kids that are doing virtual learning and all these other things. So how, and again, Kelly, what's important to me today, what's important to me is that my kid's school is not giving them a device. And so what's important to me is I get another device at the house, right? And so what is going to be important to me today looks totally different from what was important to me 6 months ago. And so if we aren't communicating and being thoughtful about how we've been communicating, we are missing an opportunity to be leaders to people, not managing the process. We got, like you said, Kelly, they've been exposed on all levels of development, on all levels of fundamentals, on all of that. And I love Barbara Kellerman, who wrote a book in 2018 called Professionalizing Leadership, to where she talks about the development of character, the repetition of how are you building the muscle of leadership, because managers, they're a dime a dozen, but actual leaders who actually care about human beings, that's who this season has said we need to be for our people. And if you're not being a human first and you're being a position first, people are quitting you.
Here's what I'll say. Something that I think is extremely important. Everyone talks about transparency, but you don't. I was with a firm for 13 years, and one of our values was transparency. But I was the COO. My boss, not transparent at all, which killed me because I tried to do that. But that is so important. So here's, I will say to my team, I'm on vacation. So, I said, come 2:30 today. I'm going to take a break. So then they are awesome. We'll jump in, we'll do this, great. Thank you so much, right? That's really, really nice. Back in the day, I would have never taken a break. I would have hustled through vacation. My kid would have been so upset. And so I show them that I'm a human too. And, someone the other day was like, well, I'm going to go reschedule an appointment because I've got to do this work. And I was like, no, you're not, because I wouldn't. You're not, So, or I'm on video with someone and her daughter's trying to get up and she's like, no. I was like, bring her on the screen. We'll say hello. So I do the same thing with my son, and I'll tell them, hey, I have an appointment and it's something personal, and I'm bailing out for an hour or whatever. Whatever it is, if you are doing the same things, it's not just about saying, I don't mind. But if you lead by example and they see that it's okay to put your children first, and it's okay, then they don't feel anxiety about things that are going on in the background. You have to show them. I really believe so many things. I'm like, hey, I'm going to go work out now. 3 o'clock, but that's what I'm doing right now. I'm going to go work out for an hour, 2 hours, and then I'll be back on later tonight. If you need me, you can call me, but I'm trying to let them know it's okay to take breaks.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, TaJuana. I'm looking at the time. I know we have 4 minutes left, so I definitely want to hear what you're just about to say, TaJuana. I also want to make sure we have time to give each of you a couple minutes just to say, these are the problems that my clients right now are experiencing, and this is how you reach me. So go ahead, TaJuana.
Just going to echo what Kelly said about leading by example, acknowledging even when you're wrong, acknowledging when you don't know. Right? Those are also important, because there are some corporate cultures, whether we like it or not, that may not be able to be as flexible as what Kelly is expressing. Yet you can say, hey, just be the change that you want to see. Be the example that you want to have the answer. It's okay to say, I don't have the answer right now. What do you suggest? Right? Or let me go to whomever I need to go to and see how we can come up with a solution to resolve it. Right? So just be human. be human is all we're
I
all
make
we're
mistakes every day and I get called out. I'm like, oh no. Like I emailed our system the other day and I was like, yesterday, and I was like, something's wrong. We're not getting any return calls, any emails, something's wrong. And I'm emailing like the system, the people that run the system. And she goes in and does all this work after all these back and forth emails. And she says, your campaigns weren't even turned on. And I was like, so then I emailed the team. I was like, or I Slacked the team. I was like, I'm going to say that I'm pretty sure I didn't turn them on. So you have to do that. Yeah. Then they were like, you're killing us. I'm like, oh.
yeah. They have to learning, and that's a learning environment, right?
Yeah.
When you're able to make the mistake, we're not encouraging mistakes, but when a mistake happens, teachable moment, not a threat, not a detriment, not a death sentence.
It's
right?
okay to make mistakes. Yeah,
Yes.
that's how you learn, right?
That's how you learn.
Time, my campaigns are going to be on.
Yeah.
Kelly, can you just take a moment and say, if you're a company, if you're a leader in a company and you're experiencing, you know, these 3 things, then it's a sign that you need to call me and this is how you reach me.
You mean for my business, for Panna Knows?
Yeah.
I would say it's not necessarily a problem because we can get way ahead of that before there are problems. But when you're ready to hire any position at all, whether it's 1 or 100, we'll do it because we do recruiting and we also do staffing. So whatever they need, get ahead of that and call someone to help. Because what happens is hiring manager says, I can do that myself. And with COVID now, there's so many people available because there's more people, but they don't realize they have to go through a lot of people. I would say instead of trying to do it yourself, which most companies try to do, call someone like my company, Panna Knows, PANNAKNOWS, and ask us for help. And I'll let you know if we can help you or not, or I'll refer you somewhere. But otherwise, like, this is why companies like mine are in business. It's too much work. So hiring managers should focus on their core business, right?
Trial and error.
Let us do the rest.
Trial and error in hiring is very, very costly, right? And frustrating.
Yeah. And one more thing I'll say, when someone has a position that they know is like, we call it a purple squirrel or a unicorn, it's very difficult to find. You have to loosen up, right? So if you stick to your guns and you're like, we need this tomorrow, but we need every box checked. Guess what? What's the cost of not having that person in sooner and offering them some training? Right. Why don't you hold their hand? Why don't you look for aptitude? Because otherwise it could be 6 months. I've seen companies wait 6 months or a year. And then what are they losing? So that's my little soapbox. Good
point. Okay, TaJuana, go ahead.
Yes. So if you have a new idea, a new initiative, a new compliance, right? If you're run by the government or you have some type of mandate that you have to stay within, you're going to need help because you're going to have to make a shift, right? If you are starting with how rather than what, you haven't made a decision on what yet, and you're trying to figure out how to do it, you're going to need some help, right? You're heading down a hole that you are just going to keep digging yourself deeper in. And if you don't have a process or you aren't sticking to a process that will allow you to streamline, make work more delegable, allow somebody else to pick up when another important matter, whether it be personal or professional, happens, you need some help. And that's where I come in and support businesses and, you know, even creatives to help you achieve the desired results, not just any result, because you can take action and get a result, but is it the result that you want? So if you're having any of those problems, that is where you would hire someone like myself or have project management come in and help you ditch this organization and really get a focus on what it is that you're wanting out of your organization.
You are both members of the C3 community. So if people come in here to watch the replay, can they just direct message you through LinkedIn to reach you?
Yep. Absolutely.
Around decision making, I did want to say that next Tuesday I'm starting a 3-day conscious decision making challenge. I'll be walking through 3 frameworks for making conscious decisions. If you're there and you're stuck, let's see if we can't use this challenge to get you to some kind of conclusion so that you can hire TaJuana to come in and help execute on it. Lawrence, what do you want to say? Close it
No,
up.
I'm just excited that I got a chance to meet again this fabulous panel of experts. And again, I'm a huge believer in stop trying to do it by yourself when there are super extraordinary people out there who love doing it for you. So always team me. Like I love a team of people that are experts. So I endorsed here today. Get you a team. Kelly, TaJuana, Karen, as always, thank you so much for this opportunity to share and grow.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much. Great to meet you.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.